what of the original construction of these monuments? It's an aspect that's always fascinated me. Jill Swanton, local farmer and archaeologist.
Being an archaeologist and a farmer is actually quite useful because it gives me an insight into perhaps what people were doing in the past.
Recent work has suggested that the Avebury megaliths were transported to the circle on wooden sledges. These sledges must have been fashioned and the trees on the route must have been cleared using an enormous number of stone tools.
It's fantastically wild up here, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and chilly. Well, here it is, look. Beautiful stone.
Brilliant, isn't it?
Very lucky to have it because in the last century the stone breakers are up here. You can still see the wedge marks.
Oh, so they've knocked that piece off by... Yeah. Oh, right.
But obviously...
There's a piece gone out of here, isn't there?
We have this left.
Now, I know these as polissoirs in France, where they ground the axes to make them. But they're rare in this country, aren't they?
Yeah, there aren't many around here. Yeah. But this is the pearl, because it has all these sharpening areas as well.
Presumably this is the big sides of the axe, and this is where they do the thin sides and the edges.
Sharpen up the edges, yes.
And they're really quite sharp and shiny today, aren't they? When you get up close, you can see the lovely sheen off it.
That's right.
So there ought to be a lot of these about, hadn't there? Because when they're building a monument like Avebury, they would need a lot of timber.
Vast amounts. Yeah.
And so they would need large numbers of these stone and flint axes to do that. So this is almost the beginning of our story, isn't it? Because this is the chaps preparing the tools to do the work.
And presumably it continued right the way through the story as well, because he'd go on using it. It may have even achieved a ritual significance in the end.
Well, obviously it's been used a long time to get a bowl like that and the grooves like that.
And sarsen's extremely hard stone.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of wearing away.
But where did the builders of Avebury get their megaliths from? Jill took me back to a little visited and remarkable place, the Valley of the Sarsens.
This is where the guys who built Avebury would have come to select their stones.
I remember this stone now, and I remember this big lump on the bottom of it. Well, presumably it's possible that they were getting this stone out of the ground, ready to take it to Avebury or Stonehenge or somewhere, and this big lump was the reason it was abandoned. It is one of the biggest stones left, isn't it, round here? Certainly this side looks like the weathered top, doesn't it? Perhaps that was what they actually saw.
It may well be, and of course it's the right sort of shape for a stone at Avebury.
Yeah, I mean, got it out, they found that it had this big keel on it.
It is very high out of the ground. If you look at the other stones around, it looks as if it has been picked up and then dumped.
This probably gives us an idea about them getting the stone out, selecting it to use it, dragging it up this valley here where they could take it down on the ridgeway, building it into the site.
Well, of course, it could have been that they could have been the last stone they were dragging out, and they got to shout back down the line, "It's okay, boys, you can forget that one, we're finished." And the sighs of relief.
I actually like that better.
Jill is also curator of an experimental earthwork, designed to tell us more about the construction of prehistoric earthworks.
It's worth pointing out, isn't it, this is a modern earthwork. This is something that's probably the longest term experiment in the archaeological, well, not just archaeology, but a lot of other sciences as well.
It was designed originally in 1959 and constructed in 1960.
Yeah.
They did use antlers and shoulder blades for some of the experiment, and they did work how long it takes to move a certain amount of dirt.
This is important for Avebury and other monuments because this is actually telling us how these things change, isn't it? I mean, this wasn't built to look like this.
No, indeed. And we've been monitoring the changes that have taken place over the years. And from that, we can look at the profile as it's stabilised and look at the turf line profile. And what was fascinating was when Alistair Whittle was digging Millbarrow, which is just north of Avebury. We actually, when he sectioned the ditches there, were exactly the same profile. Dark lines of turf in the ditch of the Long Barrow.
That's why I wanted to come up here, because when this was dug, it was actually vertically sided, and there was a flat space or a berm between the bank and the ditch. When we see Avebury today, with that huge bank and ditch, the implications of this are that it may have had more vertical sides to the ditch originally, and there may actually have been a space between the ditch and the bank, and the banks themselves might have been taller and steeper. And the idea is it's been excavated after 1 year, 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, 16 years.
That's right, it's 128 years in total.
It's a pity we're not going to be around at the end of it.
Yes, I
to
know.
see what they think,
I
isn't
know.
it?
By the 1960s, Avebury was one of our most studied sites. But ironically today, with new and exciting discoveries, we're beginning to realise how little we know and how much there is to learn. As we look over that way then, we're looking towards West Kennet, where these new circles were found.
That's right. Alistair Whittle in the mid-1980s was looking at some old aerial photographs and suddenly sort of saw these ditches. This was the one that was identified first.
Right.
And then when his project got going, they then did more geophysics and took more aerial photographs, and this one came up as well.
Should we think of these as more circles with perhaps posts rather than stones, and are they roughly the same date?
They're probably slightly later than Avebury.
Right.
Yeah, they're coming up to sort of around 4,000 years old.
Right.
But yes, I think they're definitely not village sites or settlement sites. They seem to be something.
So something a bit more, another ritual bit.
Another ritual bit. Yes, that's right.
A landscape full of ritual, isn't it?
It is.
And believe it or not, we're still learning more about the Avebury landscape through new archaeological discoveries. Now this is quite extraordinary, isn't it? Because this new feature must be somewhere in this area.
Yes, it is.
We've got the picture
yes,
there.
It's pretty difficult to see anything.
There's nothing at all
Nothing to
on
see.
the ground,
No.
is there?
No.
And yet that's absolutely clear on the air pictures.
It was tremendously exciting
Yeah,
when it
yeah.
turns out. I mean, it was found.
I didn't believe it actually until I saw. No, I didn't until I saw the air picture. I
Yeah.
thought, how the hell can they find something like a double ditched enclosure to Avebury when it's been looked at for so long?
First of all, I didn't see it. I was looking at all the other features
Yeah,
that you
because
normally
there's
look
lots
for.
of other
There's
stuff
lots
on
of other
there,
stuff
isn't
in
there?
there.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the end, they said, "Oh, what about this?" And it was just one of those wonderful moments in archaeology when you
Yeah.
sort of think, "Oh my, wow."
So what do you think it is, Roz?
Some things spring to mind. Things like a barrow. And what it reminds me of is a site near Oxford, which was a Middle Neolithic. And if it was of the same sort of date as that,
Yeah.
it would make it pre-Henge
Right.
rather than later.
Yeah.
than
So it's something that's here before all the earthworks and stones and stuff are built. What is extraordinary though is this is a place that's been looked at for what 300 more years.
Yeah.
And one literally fluke visit,
Yeah.
flying over,
Yeah.
fluke conditions, somebody gets a picture, something totally new. Presumably we're looking at something ritual again, are we, with
I
that?
think so. Yes.
So still no
Yeah.
evidence of anybody frying an egg in Avebury in prehistoric times, nothing as domestic as
Oh
that.
no.
I go to tender her grave every week. I never miss. She was very fond of flowers, you know. She'd do all the flowers before she went blind. And I thought, well, that's my duty to go there and look after her grave. But I miss her very much, all time, every day. I think of her. We was together 49 years. I was very distressed. It's a feeling no one knows, only they that have it come to them.